Hello, welcome to Dissonant Waves, episode 53.
Yeah,
Gotta check that. I should have had that queued up, but
yeah, it's 53.
excellent. Well, my name is Dominic, and Trix is here.
Yes.
Ritz is not, but hopefully he'll be feeling better by the time this is up. But we do have 3 albums to talk about this week, as normal. We got Ritz's pick, Brockhampton's Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. My pick, Kali Masi's Wind Instrument. And Trix's pick, the Judgment Night soundtrack by various people.
Yes.
The producer of the Judgment Night soundtrack, to attribute it to somebody, Happy Walters is the name. There's another name, I believe. That's one of the big ones.
Gotcha. I didn't really look too much into it. I just kind of heard about this album on a podcast. I'm like, that'll be good for the podcast.
One podcast to another.
You know, the podcast I was listening to wasn't a music podcast, so I felt fair.
That's fair. My question is, do you want in brief, how did you feel about Roadrunner?
I was lukewarm on it.
Okay, let's talk about that one first, because I think that's I have similar views, and Ritz isn't here to defend it, so we can just trash talk all we want.
Yeah, we can just trash on it.
So, Brockhampton, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine.
It was okay, I guess. I'm not really the most well versed in hip hop.
I like hip hop. I've brought hip hop to the show before.
Yeah, well, me trying to talk about hip hop is like asking your mechanic what's wrong, or asking your plumber what's wrong with your car.
I mean that's fair, but I mean the other hip hop we've brought on, like Kendrick and stuff, I think you've liked more.
Yeah, I guess so. There are some things I like more than others, I guess, but that's true with everything.
I mean, I guess I've heard about Brockhampton from Ritz and other people for a long time, and my big impression of this was that it wasn't that special. Like, Buzzcut, the first track, is kind of interesting. The music video was really weird, and like a whole 90s boy band thing is kind of interesting the first time you check it out.
Yeah.
And then once you start listening to more of the album, I just don't see a lot of the hype, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, the first half of the album outside of Buzzcut is pretty nothing to me. It's just there. I don't really remember much of it.
I'm with you on that.
And then we get to I'll Take You On, and that's when I started liking a lot of what's going on. Old News, What's the Occasion, Don't Show Up the Party, I really liked. I think Don't Show Up the Party was very memorable to me.
Yeah, that was a good tune.
Yeah, and it's like the stuff I remember is either Buzzcut or usually mostly from that second half. And to see the reviews this is getting, pretty good reviews across the board, everywhere from Pitchfork's giving it a decent review, Rolling Stone's giving it a decent review, and all criticism is so subjective, and music criticism especially seems very subjective. Everything gets good to great reviews for the most part, unless it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But even this is surprising, because I just feel like a lot of it is just there. For a band that I've heard so much about, it's just it's not the strongest thing here.
No, it's definitely a pretty weak album.
There's all this stuff about how this is one of the last albums Brockhampton's doing. Brockhampton's in a transitional period because one of their main members had left the band because of sexual assault allegations.
Yeah.
Kevin Abstract being gay and being the leader of the group is cool. I always hate it when I have to rag on queer music because I feel bad, but in this case it's there's not much I think that's really special.
No.
A$AP Rocky and A$AP Ferg on a track is kind of fun. I remember in the moment liking that track quite a bit. It's oh man, they're cool features. But now that I'm looking back, I don't remember Bankroll at all.
Yeah, this album is mostly features, I noticed.
That's not a bad thing. I think having features on your stuff is fun.
Yeah, it definitely is fun, but I feel if you have too many features, it can strip away what makes the album, what makes the artist the artist.
I mean, unless the whole thing is meant to be about features, because like Janelle Monáe had a lot of features, but her vision is so grand and like you understand.
Yeah.
Like you power through it and it's still there. But I guess
Definitely.
that is to say then that Brockhampton's vision of this is not as, strong or not as coherent as Janelle Monáe's would be.
Yeah. Although Brockhampton and Janelle Monáe, that might actually kind of slap.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wanted to get it out of the way first because I don't really have very much to say about it, and I feel like if Ritz was here, he probably would.
Yeah, he would just be going on while we're just like, yep, I didn't really like it too much, but I can see what you say about that.
And then whenever I try to go on and on about an album, he tries to cut me off very quickly.
Yeah.
I see how it is, Ritz. I'm calling you out. Spawn, bitch.
Like he's gonna listen to this.
Probably not. That's okay. I'll just be like, hey, I left a message, or I'll just confront him like an adult.
Leave him a voicemail. Get that on our voicemail tier list.
Yeah, I'll just leave him a voicemail, I'll get his number, and then we'll just put it on whatever album he does next. And I'll be right there with Lindsay Field and or Finzi Leald and the guy from Petite League. Yeah.
There's two from Petite League.
I'll be better than both of them.
Uh,
So yeah, Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. I don't know what the title means, which is fine. I thought there'd be some kind of premise or something there, but whatever.
I will say one of the aesthetic choices I like and one of the ones I don't like is I like how the album art is a photo of a CD.
I do like that.
Which that makes it like, look, I'm hoping that they put a picture of the CD on the CD jewel case.
How about a picture of the CD case on the CD?
That would be pretty cool. One of the things I'm not a fan of is all cap song titles.
I mean, their whole band name is in all caps. Brockhampton is supposed to be one capitalized thing, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta give them points for like collaborating with people you really wouldn't expect, like Ryan Beatty, and I guess they do some stuff with Jaden Smith, which is interesting.
Yeah. How can mirrors be real if our eyes aren't?
You said it. You absolutely said it.
I think that's the quote. It's been a few years since I've tried to dredge that up from the depths of my memory.
I know, like, there's been talk about how some of the lyrics are very personal. There is a voicemail on one of these tracks. I know. Which track is it? Voicemail. It's on The Light. I think that's the song that they talk about, where one of the members, Joba, talks about very personal stuff about his father, death,
his father's suicide. Yeah. I think
being in the house after all this time. It's an interesting voicemail for sure. You obviously feel bad, and it's very moody. But the problem is, it's on a part of the album that I don't really remember, no matter how many times I've listened to it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really comment. Again, I feel bad because now that I think about it, I do remember that. But the song after that, not really. But again, I think the ending is stronger. Don't Show Up the Party is great. I'll Take You On I think it's like the turning point for me. Like Dear Lord even and The Light Part 2 I think are good ways to end it. Just sounds more interesting by then. I just don't like that.
I'll agree with that.
I just don't like that it took like 6 songs to really get there.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna be inconsistent, I would prefer it to be a little bit more spread out, or the ramp up be quicker, or something like that. And that's really hard to do or call people out for because it's so subjective. But it just makes the album drag a bit and then not seem like as powerful as it should be.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you really have to say about Roadrunner?
Not really. I didn't really listen to this one as much as I should have. I didn't really have some great listening hygiene this week because I was just busy.
That's fair. I've tried. I mean, at a certain point, there's some stuff I just didn't really want to listen to again and again and again.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorites, least favorites?
I'll just say that I kind of more preferred like the side B over side A.
I agree. I think Don't Show Up the Party is a fun song.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta pick a least favorite, I don't know. Something in the first half, maybe just the first half overall compared to the second half.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because it's like the other hip hop album we've done this week surprisingly overshadowed it, I think.
Yeah, and I think that might have more to do with the fact that it's not just a pure hip hop album.
Sure, it's rap rock. We're talking about the soundtrack to the movie Judgment Night. And did you end up watching Judgment Night?
Nah, I couldn't fit it into my schedule.
It's not a good movie.
I figured as much.
To like give a brief summary, a bunch of friends were just like fucking, maybe they're all about 30 or late 20s, like just privileged white men yahoos from Illinois. They go to catch a sports game. I think it's like boxing in Chicago. And oh man, the highway's backed up. They've rented this huge RV for the event. You know, they're rich, or they're scheming. They're able to get this decked out RV with a NES and all this fun stuff in it. But the highway's backed up, so they decide to cut a shortcut, and they start going through the inner city of Chicago, which I guess is like miles long at the time. And they just get stuck, and they have a whole adventure with gangs, especially a white gang headed by Dennis Leary, who is not very intimidating. And yeah, they have an adventure through the inner city of Chicago. Boy, oh boy, they really play it up.
And as someone from the Chicagoland area, I'm assuming you can tell me that it's incredibly fictional.
Yeah. Like neighborhoods in Chicago can sometimes, like, oh yeah, maybe there's a little bit of like a few blocks to play with, but like the way it makes it seem is that the entire section of the city is just barren wasteland, garbage, just
it's
like
not
flying
Detroit.
everywhere. It makes it seem like Detroit. Like entire segments of like train track are just pretty much abandoned. And like, you know, there's problems with Chicago for sure, and I'm sure there was worse problems in the early 90s, but it just seems like a huge like overstatement considering how much they show of the city itself, and like the supermarkets they show, and like some of the like actual buildings and stuff look better than like they try to make you believe with everything else around it. Like the whole last part of the movie is like the gangs have chased them to the supermarket now, and it's a pretty nice supermarket. It's pretty fucking cool. It's got 2 stories. It's got one of those old fashioned elevators with like the door you have to like pull down.
That's pretty cool.
And it's like, yeah, it's trying to make you believe that this is probably on the edges of the inner city, you know? It's scary out there. You know, the police don't respond as much over there. No, this supermarket looks pretty fucking sweet.
That reminds me, I went to a 2-story Walmart one time.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's the biggest Walmart in the States in Albany, New York.
Yeah, we have like a 2-story Starbucks in Chicago.
That seems excessive.
I think there might be a 2-story McDonald's as well. Did I ever tell you my dream about the McDonald's that was in my dream?
I don't think so.
I had a dream a long time ago. I was like a child, and I always remember this. It was a McDonald's that was like a block long. And at one end there was a McDonald's, and at the other end was a McDonald's, and in between was just a giant bridge. Like one of those like hospital, like going across like the street kind of bridges.
Yeah.
And being like a dumb kid at the time, I loved it. It was great. You just like go from one McDonald's to the other. They had the same stuff, same employees. Like, man, it's like a whole block long. It's so cool.
I had a similar dream, except it was more like an indoor drive-through, and it was like a Walmart-sized building that you drove into, and there was just a singular McDonald's in the building.
There was something I was seeing on like Twitter or something that was like a drive-through for McDonald's that you had to go basically in a tunnel to get to.
Yeah, I've seen that one. There's a Twitter account called Non-Standard McDonald's. And it has all the photos of like do you remember in the 90s when like themed McDonald's were big?
Yeah.
They're falling out of fashion now, but they're there was the big tunnel. There's a McDonald's in California somewhere outside of LA that's based in like a train station, and they built like fake train cars that you could eat in.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I wish they had more themed McDonald's.
Yeah, there's one by sort of where I live it's a half 50s style McDonald's and half modern.
Okay.
Like they went to modernize it, but like they kept like the 50s design to it for some reason.
All right.
It's weird. It's got I think Ronald McDonald is still outside of it.
I went to one McDonald's that had just like a giant waterfall wall in like the middle of it, and I was just like, that's so cool. Just relax and eat your fucking burger and just look at a waterfall. It's cool.
Yeah.
But all this is to say that Judgment Night's not a very good movie. God, who's fucking even in it? Emilio Estevez. You don't really believe anybody. They're just fucking assholes for the most part, and they kind of get what they deserve. But
yeah, fair enough.
But for some reason, they decided to do a whole soundtrack of rap rock. Not just any rap rock. You got like artists just collaborating together. You got rap artists, hip hop artists, and like alternative rock bands coming together.
Yeah, like Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, Dinosaur Jr. and Del the Funky Homo Sapien. Like what a combo.
Yeah, and it works well.
You know, like I've listened to Del the Funky Homo Sapien for most of my life because some of his songs have just been that important.
I didn't realize that.
Like Tony Hawk 3, he's on there.
Ah.
He has the song "If You Must," the one about washing your ass.
It's been a minute since I played Tony Hawk 3, and I don't really remember the soundtrack. It was the one I played the least as a kid.
That's fair. It's a very memorable song. And then there was, I think he was on Feel Good Inc. If I remember right.
Ah, that sounds familiar. Actually, hold up, let me check.
I think he's Feel Good Inc. guy. Collaborations. Oh, he was on Clint Eastwood. He was Clint Eastwood on Clint Eastwood. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was De La Soul on Feel Good Inc.
Oh, De La Soul also on this soundtrack.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Fallen is not as successful of a song. It's just
nope.
It's kind of weird. It's like it's based on the song Free Fallin'. Just samples that Fallen vocal over and over.
Yeah.
And the rap is kind of not great. It's kind of out of measure, out of meter, or out of tempo. I don't know what the proper verbiage would be for that. It's just a strange song.
Yeah. Well, this whole album is just can be chalked up as like strange in the best possible way.
Right. And like for the most part it's pretty successful. Most of the songs are at least decent.
Yeah, like Freak Mama surprised me with how good I thought that one was.
Sir Mix-a-Lot can actually rap pretty well outside of like Baby Got Back.
Yeah.
Even though they're kind of basically the same song.
Yeah.
You know, in that one he wants Baby with Back, and this one he just wants a Freak Mama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of get that what he likes to rap about. But he's still pretty good. Name dropping Mudhoney, the band he collaborates with in the song, is pretty fun.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
I think the only two songs that really did not hit for me at all were Fallen, the Teenage Fan Club, and De La Soul, and I Love You, Mary Jane, the Sonic Youth, and Cypress Hill.
Yeah, Sonic Youth is just, they're a weird shoegaze band that does a lot of weird stuff.
I appreciate some of Sonic Youth's songs. I just don't think this one was very good. But like, I think that's a huge get.
That's understandable.
It's a huge get for the time.
Oh yeah.
Because like, I think this is around the era of Cool Thing. But like, I went through, I wrote down kind of where every band and group was at the time they recorded this. I'll give you some of the highlights. Where are they? Here we go. So you got with like the first song, Just Another Victim, I think was one of the highlights, and that's Helmet, an 80s like metal-y band.
Yeah.
But actually started in '89, so not like more of a '90s band really. And House of Pain, who had just come off their big success with Jump Around.
Their only hit.
House of Pain also started in '91, so they were just a couple years into this whole thing.
Yeah.
By the time they were on the soundtrack, they are like one of the newest acts on here. Meanwhile, you have like Slayer and Ice-T doing Disorder, which is, I guess, a medley of songs by another group called The Exploited.
Yeah. Although there's definitely a Kerry King solo on there. You can tell because he doesn't know how to solo.
But like Slayer, by then, already a decade into the business. I think Rain and Blood has already been done by then.
Oh yeah, we were like Dead Skin Mask had already come out, one of my favorite albums by them.
And like Ice-T also had like 10 years in the business by then or so. So that's like old hat compared to everybody else on here.
Yeah, and Ice-T is a huge Slayer fan, so that was like a dream for him.
It's also one of the most interesting songs, one of the most political, even though it's like a cover of like a Scottish band.
Yeah.
Like the beginning is just like, your government is fucked, or our government is fucked.
Definitely.
And it kind of has the vibes of like post LA Rodney King riots kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So like that's interesting.
A song that we wish would kind of just stop being relevant.
Yeah. But like I think it's like I shared with you the one collaboration that didn't quite make the album.
Yeah, the Tool and Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, that song was actually pretty cool, and I think was probably one of the better.
It was.
It would have
like
fit really well.
Moody. It was dark and moody, and then exploded into that the riot bit.
Yeah, like Rage Against the Machine and Tool collaborating is just a cool idea.
Well, I mean, Maynard James Keenan and Tom Morello used to be roommates.
That makes sense. I think I've heard that before. But like,
I think I might have even mentioned it. But that's where Tom Morello learned drop D.
Okay.
Which is like the tuning that like some of the most famous Rage Against the Machine songs are in.
But it's like, okay, maybe they didn't want that song because they didn't like it as much. That's cool. But then you have like 2 Cypress Hill songs, and Cypress Hill's, I think, a fun band. Like, what's their song? How I Could Just Kill a Man is a great song.
Yeah.
But like to do 2 songs, and if one of them be I Love You, Mary Jane with Sonic Youth, not to have that be great. But then come back with Pearl Jam and do Real Thing. I at least appreciate that.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam also a very new band at this point. Like this probably was around the time of like Jeremy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate like they really did get like a huge range of bands to collaborate with this.
Oh, definitely.
And like even like the title track Judgment Night is pretty cool. It's surprising how, because like from what I gathered from what I read about the production of it, it's kind of like everyone kind of had like a day in the studio just kind of figure something out.
Sometimes some of the best music can come out of restrictive creativity. I don't know if I'm ever gonna do them, but do you know who Andrew Huang and Rob Scallon are?
No.
Well, they're 2 YouTubers who have been in the business since like the late 2000s.
Okay.
And 3 years ago now, they started a project, 16th of October, I think it's called.
Okay.
Where every year they do just an album in one day.
All right.
And let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
No, it's not 16th of October. Up.
But while you're doing that, I will say the interesting thing is that this soundtrack is both like a kind of like a call ahead to like the most famous acts or some of them, Pearl Jam and Sir Mix-a-Lot, all that stuff. But also like you even get like stuff that's not as popular now or wasn't even popular then. I mean, there's nothing about Fatal rapper, for example. I tried like looking into it.
I was looking there too for you.
Yeah, apparently there was something with a similar name that worked with Tupac, but this is not the same person. And
yeah,
they had just like done a single around the time they were looking for people for the soundtrack, and I think that's what got him in. But he never really went anywhere. But the band Therapy that he worked with, at least it seemed to do some stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, it was 1st of October.
1st of October is the series.
Yeah, and the band they go by, and they have 10 hours a year to just write an album from scratch.
That seems very restrictive.
Yeah, I'll send you the videos once we're done. It's super entertaining just to watch like them crunch in the studio.
Do you remember Me, Myself, and My Microphone very much?
I remember enjoying it.
Yeah, that's Living Colour and Run DMC. And I would argue that song's better than Walk This Way with Aerosmith.
I'll give you that, yeah.
Like, for as popular as Walk This Way became, Run DMC had a better out the second time doing this whole rap rock thing. It's not as gimmicky this time.
Living Colour is a great band too. I've been meaning to do some stuff by them.
The funny thing is, if you had to guess which song the soundtrack uses most in the actual film, what would you think it is?
Definitely not Judgment Night. Gonna guess it's the I Love Mary Jane because it's a '90s movie, and I'm guessing weed has to be involved somehow.
Not really. The song that the movie uses most is Fallen.
Ah,
The song that I like probably the least.
that's weird.
Because it's a Tom Petty thing, Free Fallen. So I think that's probably got maybe some of the white people involved in the movie interested.
Yeah, the honkies.
Yeah, that's just my guess. Like, oh, I know that song, Free Fallen. Oh boy. I also don't like Tom Petty very much, so that's a bias on my end.
He had a few good songs, and that's about it. Free Fallen wasn't one of them.
I have to hear about Jack and Diane one more time. I just shoot
That
somebody.
was John Cougar Mellencamp.
Was it really?
Yeah, that was.
Didn't Tom Petty do a similar song though?
Probably. I mean, they're all just regional Springsteens.
Fair enough. But yeah, I remember hearing Fallen a lot. It's in the beginning. It's at the end. Just Another Victim plays. I remember that. Another Body Murdered plays. Those are like the big singles pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I think most of the other stuff kind of just comes in here and there. Like, I think Disorder appears a little bit. But I think the interesting thing I think I've found with a lot of, like, scores for movies and video games that they're not really used very well.
Yeah.
Like, I'll listen to, like, a game score or a movie score even. You're like, this is really good stuff. And then you, like, listen to it in context, and they've sampled, like, the worst part of it and overlaid it over a very quick scene. And then it's like, you just kind of wasted that whole song. Now nobody's ever going to hear it unless they check out the soundtrack.
Yeah. One of the few exceptions I can think of that where it's like great soundtrack, great game, great way they used it all is Portal 2.
Uh-huh.
Portal 2 had a phenomenal soundtrack, and on top of that, it had a procedurally generated soundtrack too that it dipped into.
Oh, that's cool.
So every time you play the game, the soundtrack will sound slightly different.
Like, I'm playing Near Replicant right now. Near Replicant's soundtrack's probably one of the best I've ever heard in a game. And that actually uses the songs pretty well. And, like, it plays with, like, layering of songs and when certain parts kick in and when certain parts go away. And it does overuse some songs that actually sound really good, but then are like, man, this context is not called for this, maybe. But it does end up using the songs pretty well, and that's only because there's so many good songs, it's hard not to use them. But then you get a game that I also have played and then liked, like Xenosaga 2, which is its own barrel of problems and issues, and it's just like, you have really just wasted this cool fight song on the ending of this fight for 10 seconds, and it's not even, like, the good part.
But yeah, I'm another game soundtrack I'm a big fan. Sorry to, like, derail this for a minute. But, like, Undertale soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And Toby Fox used it so well.
A lot of, like, older games tend to use it pretty well because you just kept hearing it over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon, you hear those themes endlessly. Mario, you hear those themes a lot. But when you have, like, the bigger games and the bigger soundtracks and, like, the orchestrated stuff, then it's like you really have to think about when to actually introduce stuff and how much material you have to work with. It's almost like a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And so, again, my question then is, because the soundtrack is not used, it's not, like, pushed to the forefront, why was the soundtrack created? What was the thinking behind having this be a whole thing? Was it just to sell the soundtrack and hope that generated interest in the movie?
Maybe. Like, I have a feeling the Slayer Ice-T, they're hoping to sell a lot of soundtracks based on just that song alone.
Mm-hmm. Like, they have a lot of great artists who were popular then.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's, like, a modern version of this. Like, maybe, like, Tron Legacy.
Yeah, like Daft Punk coming in to do a whole soundtrack and then trying to see if it'll, like, generate interest in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, did Legacy even use that whole soundtrack 100%?
Yeah,
well?
and then some.
Okay, I'll have to watch it again. I don't remember.
Because they recently dropped, like, the entire uncut soundtrack.
Another thing to mention too with this is that there is, like, a composer attached to the film, Alan Silvestri, who is like a very known Hollywood composer. He's done, you know, Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Lilo and Stitch, Marvel film, you know, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, we have this rap rock soundtrack, which is really unique and cool. Then we're just still gonna put, like, a traditional musical score. Again, why and who is it for?
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to appeal to the movie people who want to hear a traditional film score. You want to draw in like the kids and the hip people who know about Run DMC and Helmet and Dinosaur Jr., I guess.
Maybe the movie was just an excuse to make the album.
That'd be cool. I'd be down for that. But at that point, you think you try to push the music as much as possible.
Yeah.
Especially when like the story is just nothing and like important. The most interesting thing that really happens, spoilers, is that fucking Jeremy Piven dies during the movie, which is great. His character is very slimy, and so seeing that death is like, cathartic in a movie like that, where it's like something happens at least.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I when I heard about this soundtrack, I heard about it as the context of like, oh, you listen to the soundtrack, it's great. Movie, but like soundtrack's great.
Yeah, it's like the movie itself is just a bunch of fucking tropes put together. Like, oh man, they're going between the buildings. They're on the little fucking ladder that if they go over the side, they're gonna fall and die. Or oh man, the sewer's super big. Chicago sewers are fucking gigantic. You could fucking live down there and have a fight scene down there. All that traditional like action movie of the 80s and 90s stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good soundtrack. It's a great soundtrack. Has a lot of interesting ideas, and it's surprisingly like progressive for the time, given that rap rock even now is not like a big thing.
No, it was big in like the late 90s, early 2000s for a minute.
Right, and it's kind of like part of it's, I think, the oddity of it. Part of it's like you have bands like Rage Against the Machine that were there that I really like.
Yeah.
And then you have like the new metal scene and all that stuff that kind of cropped up around then. I think wrong direction, and then
definitely
some people still like it, and there's probably some good stuff there, but just kind of tarnish the whole thing.
Yeah.
But this soundtrack, for where it is and what it does, great example of why rap rock can work.
Definitely.
Especially given that they really tried to bring in different acts and make them work together. I wish more projects did that kind of
thing. Oh yeah.
Great, you have some Sufjan Stevens songs in your film, or you're having some indie artists compose your film. Why don't you have them work together? Get Sufjan Stevens and get St. Vincent and have them see what they can come up with.
That'd be cool. Like a modern take on this would be cool, because I don't think something quite like this has been attempted since then. I could be wrong, but
I mean, you definitely could be wrong. It could be like something in a different context.
At least in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, like imagine if we got like modern hip hop artists and like doom metal musicians that are still going today to throw something weird together.
Yeah, fucking give me Slift and I don't know, who would we put with Slift?
Make it real weird. Do like Slift and JPEG Mafia.
No, how about Slift and Thundercat?
Okay, that'd be actually pretty cool.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be.
We got like just Thundercat soloing over like a really spacey sort of vibe.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Or get like, get JPEG in there, but like put him with like fucking Horse Jumper of Love.
That would be weird.
Yeah, like I think you kind of have to like see what you can do and make it kind of interesting. Or maybe like JPEG and a block party.
Oh yeah,
be really cool. Yeah, the soundtrack has a lot of potential and has a lot of promise. And point to a lot of cool things that people could do, but don't watch the movie. You know what it is. Read about it. You can just imagine it, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You have much else to say about it?
No, other than it's a fun soundtrack.
What songs are your favorite?
The Dinosaur Jr. Del the Funky Homo Sapiens tune is great. The Ice-T Slayer song's great. Yeah. Freak Mama surprised me with how much I enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, Freak Mama's cool too because it sounds like almost like a 60s rock and roll kind of song.
Yeah.
And Sir Mix-a-Lot's just there laying down track, and it's like it works really well together.
It does.
Mudhoney, that whole thing reminds me of like MC5 or something.
Yeah.
My favorite tracks, I really like Just Another Victim. I think that's a great like tone setter. Like really gets you into like the whole idea. Judgment Night's cool. Disorder, for how hard it goes, I really enjoy. I know you said Slayer and Ice-T kind of like right leaning now.
At least Tom Araya is. Ice-T isn't, but Tom Araya definitely.
Yeah,
he's the bass player stroke vocalist for Slayer.
Oh, fair enough. And like the missing link with Dinosaur Jr. and Dell, pretty cool too. Like I was saying though, I Love You, Mary Jane with Sonic Youth and Cypress Hill, and Fallen with Teenage Fan Club and De La Soul. Did not like as much. Fallen especially. I mean, I appreciate that they tried something. There's a whole range of different songs. Yeah, not this one. Which leaves us then with our last album, Wind Instrument, Kali Masi. Now, before we do that, though, we should probably mention what Riddleton had to say, because he's nice enough to give us some notes since he was sick and could not make it.
While you read that, I have to go do something real quick, so take your time on this.
Sure.
My notes.
Yeah, I'm going to just talk. So, what Riddleton had to say about Brockhampton, I'll just read, quote, "As someone who wasn't really into Ginger, damn do I love this one. Brockhampton has finally opened themselves up to more heavy collabs with other artists and their albums, and fuck do these feature albums job. JPEG and Danny Brown are some early highlights, especially Brown talking about alphas, incels, and normies in the space of 3 seconds. Sampling on these tracks are fantastic. There are moments that get quite heavy, mostly on the light where Joba goes into his father's suicide. Like most Brockhampton releases since the Saturation trilogy, there's a sense of longing and depression present in this album. But unlike Ginger, they also mix it into hard-hitting tracks. It's an album that's probably going to be in my top 20. He puts his favorites at Buzzcut, loves the sample, Danny Brown and everything else, Chain On, Don't Shoot at the Party, she says All American Self-Hatred Baby, and The Light 1 and 2. His least favorite is When I Bail. What Ritz has to say about Judgment Night, as far as I know, he didn't really talk about it as much. It says, I am not going to be really qualified to talk about this since I was not in a position to actually watch the movie. Rap rock metal is an interesting soundtrack, and there were moments that I found myself kind of bopping to, but ultimately I found myself really keeping interest in the whole thing. You should also note that I do admire the cast under the Judgment Night soundtrack as well, which is why it's surprising that the soundtrack didn't really hit me that much. Which, totally fine. That is his opinion. Trix is still not available, so I'm also going to read then next group, Kali Masi. He says, give the, I guess, a preface section. Ritz says, this is an album that absolutely wears its influence on its sleeve. It seems to at least to grab enough different influences from the emo punk scene to not be samey the whole way through. The opening song sounds like a Gaslight Anthem B-side, which is a band I've never been too into, besides a couple of songs I wasn't too interested in. The vocalist has an alright voice. Sometimes it reminds me of a Budget Rise Against Them, which is another band I feel like they get influence from listening to this album. I kind of feel like this is what it must have been like for you two when you listened to Luca Brasi. Something that you probably dug a lot when it came out, but not so interesting to new listeners several years on. Whilst I don't personally think I'll ever go back to this album, they execute their songs well enough that I'd have no trouble recommending this album to fans of the genre. I'm using Blender as an excuse for not having favorites or least favorites, but I do think the songs are distinct enough from each other. There's just no personality, no strong point, no low point to talk about. Which, okay, I do really disagree with that though. Hello.
Yes, I'm back.
I'm curious how this recording will sound. I don't know if all my levels are as consistent as I would like, but we will see. I just read a bunch of shit. Hopefully it all came through pretty well.
Yeah, I heard it all.
Cool. So, Kali Masi, my pick. Another local band. I went to high school with the drummer, John Garrison, and probably the first band I was aware of from my area that actually went anywhere and did anything. I always appreciated that. They used to be known as The Howl back then. It was John Garrison, Sam Porter, the singer, and a couple other people. And then they changed to Kali Masi with some new members and all that other fun stuff. And kind of came out with Wind Instrument and their new album, Laughs. But,
okay,
man, they're probably what? And they're like 8th or 9th year of existence by now, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So what did you think of Wind Instrument?
That was an interesting album. A couple of the songs I feel did kind of run together.
Okay.
Like some more distinction between some tunes, like up until like Ghost, I thought they were kind of like the same song.
Okay.
But like I didn't really have enough time. I even though we had 2 weeks, I didn't really have enough quality time to set aside to listen to this album.
Mm-hmm.
But I did enjoy it. I liked it. I liked it more than Brockhampton. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely liked side B more than I liked side A.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think the first couple tracks are the weakest parts. Then it kind of just gets better as it goes.
Yeah, there's not really like enough to like put the set apart the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of like aggressive guitars, maybe an intro until like after Ghost, where it starts differing a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Like Longer is a pretty interesting song.
Yeah.
Where the whole song, because it's called Longer, is just the singer belting out these long solos, just long notes, holding it as long as possible. And it's kind of a gimmick, but it's kind of cool. Like, this is very much like a punk Chicago Midwestern emo kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's different a little bit, I think, from a lot of that stuff. Like, I don't know if I would exactly put it with like your American football or anything like that, but
no, it's a little more aggressive than like American football.
Yeah, it has more of like a hardcore feel. But like, I was interested in some of this because like, I actually did not come to this album until recently. I was more like, oh, the Howl's the Howl. I'll just kind of leave it there, and maybe I'll come back to it eventually. Because the Howl's first EP thing, I ordered their single on vinyl a long time ago, and that single on vinyl was interesting to me now because coming back to this wind instrument album, some of the songs that I have from when they were the Howl are on this, and they've been re-recorded and they've been redone completely. Like the last track, CA, was called Castaways, and it's longer now, and they've taken out like some vocal samples and stuff like that. Because, you know, like a lot of bands, they used to include like movie quotes and all that stuff in their songs, and they stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Sputter is a single that I have from when they were the Howl. You know, Jejune was also released back then. So it's interesting to see songs across maybe about 4-year span of time put together like this. It's like as inconsistent as it is, it does kind of ramp up pretty well. I think, you know, Powerline Days is better than Her Palms Were Raised. Jejune is more interesting than Powerline Days. Recurring 2 better than Jejune.
Yeah.
I think Ghost is probably the standout of this. I'm not going to say this is like a brilliant album or like that Kali Masi is like a brilliant band. They're no like Neutral Milk Hotel. They're no insert other band that we've done here recently. They're no Talking Heads. They're no The Chats even. But I think they do pretty well for a band that's out there making their own music.
Yeah, I'd be more interested. I'm definitely interested to see what they've done since, and I might give a listen to their new album.
Yeah, Laughs. I decided not to go with this other one, not do Laughs, because Laughs reminded me too much of Against Me.
Gotcha.
The singer does a really interesting, like almost impression of Laura Jane Grace at times.
That's interesting.
Like, you have to think about like, oh, this is not Against Me, and it's interesting because on the Demos album they released last year because of COVID, they do have an Against Me cover on there.
Huh.
So I'm thinking that was some kind of like, yeah, that's definitely an influence.
Definitely.
And I'm probably biased too. I do think the drums on this album are pretty cool.
Good drumming, yeah.
I feel like the singer quite a bit. I don't know Sam Porter. I think the voice is good. I think it's unique enough to stand out. I think what I said holds true about the punk scene is that you really need a unique vocalist to be out there and like showing off what they can do to make themselves different.
Oh, definitely.
I'm not listening to all the popular punk acts, obviously, but I'd imagine I could probably have a good shot at picking out a Kali Masi song as long as he doesn't sound like he's doing Laura Jane Grace.
That's fair enough.
So I've done now 3 different acts, or no, this is 2. I will be doing another one next week, actually. But I have shown off the Weekend Run Club. I've shown off Cardinal Heart. I've shown off Kali Masi. There is quite a lot of local music to me that I kind of did not even realize or I'd forgotten existed really before this podcast started. And so I'm really grateful for this podcast for at least making me go out and explore this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I've looked around my area. There's not much other than just like some boomer cover bands.
They have albums out?
No, they're just like bar bands that just do covers.
Fair enough. If they do have an album at some point, we should probably cover them.
I'll look, but I doubt it.
Yeah, so like songs, I think too, like Your Other Left are just interesting. I'm kind of blanking on some of the songs now, but I have listened to them a lot. I have not listened to them as much in the past few days, but stuff like Longer is still impressive given how many just long held notes there are. And Ghost has a fun hook, I think. I remember there's a lot of references to Chicago and like Michigan and taking the train back to your family out in the suburbs, and appreciate all that. I have lived all that. I understand all that. I do want to do their stuff as the Howl at some point though, because I think their first EP, it's interesting. You can definitely see how they've evolved.
All right.
And I do think one of the songs they've done on there is actually still really, really cool. And I think I shied away from Kali Masi at first because they did not follow up on what was so cool at first. But I think they're interesting and they're different now. Looking at their YouTube, I do have to give them credit for doing a bunch of YouTube videos and music videos for like how few
posted,
views.
Like the how to play.
Yeah, they did like how to play like these guitar tracks, and these are videos that get like maybe 60 views.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, they really give a shit and they really try to, you know, put themselves out there. I do hope eventually they do find some kind of success.
Yeah.
They're probably right now above like Weekend Run Club, but probably not super much. They are going to be touring across like around the world once tours open up, it looks like. I'm looking at their Bandcamp thing right now.
That's cool.
Yeah, like they're apparently going to Germany and Belgium and the UK this year. That's cool. Happy for them. But I think Wind Instrument is interesting, and probably I prefer it over like Luca Brasi. Trying to compare the two, and maybe this is a similar thing.
I'll give you that one too. It's better than Luca Brasi.
Yeah, maybe this is like a similar thing where I did not enjoy that album very much at all, so he doesn't enjoy this one very much at all for kind of similar reasons, just kind of what we grew up with, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I still think there's stuff that was interesting and unique about this, where Luca Brasi felt very it's Midwestern emo, but it's Australian, so.
Yeah. What is it with Australians copying American music?
I mean, for a long time, it seemed like they kind of got it later on, so then they tried to do it by themselves, and so they kind of seemed a little behind. No, that's now, but, you know,
yeah,
influences take some time.
Definitely.
You have much else to say?
Not really.
All right, that's fair. I will think my favorites of this album. Recurring 2, I liked. Ghost, I like a lot. And then Your Other Left, I think is really cool. Least favorite, I think Some Friends and Her Palms Are Red are just not as memorable. What are you?
I'm on Brockhampton. Hold up.
Okay, that's fair.
I was just pulling up the albums so I could get the song titles.
Yeah.
Ghost was probably the best one, at least off the top of my head. Again, just side B is a lot better than side A.
Mm-hmm. Sputter has some cool stuff to it.
Yeah.
Again, it's really unique for me, at least, being able to hear this stuff. Some of the stuff is like singles and like other versions of it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And not really taking the time to listen to these versions until now that I know they exist. Because like stuff like Castaway versus CA, it's really interesting the ways they've changed it and made it different.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, maybe something that's worth further study eventually if I do the Howl.
All right.
But we'll see. See if we get. Do you feel bad also that Ritz was not here to put more of a. But I have tried to speak for him. Doing so, it is now time for us to talk about what we're doing next week.
Yes, we're doing a 2021 episode.
2021 episode. I'll just say what I'm doing first. I'm doing another EP comparison. Just by happenstance, I had this planned. Mitchell J of the Weekend Run Club has put out a EP this year called Dear Men Down. I'm picking that. And they also collaborated on that EP with a new band called OK Cool, based in Chicago. So I'm also picking OK Cool's debut EP called Surrealist. It also came out this year. So that's cool.
Word. I'm actually going to be doing a 10-year-old album that came out in that came out in 2011, but it re-released with a whole bunch of bonus stuff and is streaming now because it wasn't streaming for a while. I'm doing Roll the Bones X by Shaky Graves.
And Ritz is doing the band Black Country New Road and their new album For the First Time, which interestingly has only 6 tracks and they're all pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much going to do it. Oh, do you want to rank real quick?
Yeah, I'll go first. I guess Brockhampton, Kali Masi, Judgment Night.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I agree. Brockhampton, Kali Masi number 2, Judgment Night number 1. Ritz has picked Judgment Night number 3, number 2 Kali Masi, number 1 Brockhampton.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least we've all agreed that Kali Masi is a decent second.
Yep.
I will take a decent second any day. And that'll do it for us. I've been Dominic. You can catch me online on Twitter at DACICHOCKI. I've also written for tiltingwindmillstudios.com in the past. You can read a lot of my writing about video games and things there.
I've been Trix. You can catch me online at procrastinaut_. That's on Twitter. Again, like procrastinating astronaut. I also have a YouTube channel where I've been doing bass stuff. You can catch us all at Dissonant Waves on Twitter and dissonantwaves.space.
Dissonantwaves.space. Is that domain back up even?
I should double check, but I don't think so. But I will. Nobody's going to be squatting on that.
Get the domain back up.
Oh well.
All right. That'll be doing it for us. Hopefully, it'll be up by the time this airs. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Say bye, Trix.
Bye.